There are damp patches on the mattress. They could be vomit or blood, urine or diarrhea.
It is a disease that is beyond boundaries. It is a disease that is irrespective of who you are.
And he was like, yeah, we have to get out right now. It's just not safe.
Instead of me spending days for nothing, I decided joining the process to fight against Ebola.
Doctors here say they are fighting a war against a deadly and unpredictable enemy.
The woman in there, we understand, is unconscious, and it's when people are in that state that they're most contagious.
Ebola is one of the most fatal diseases to hit the world in recent history. Let's dive in and see exactly why this illness is so horrifying. Origins of Ebola. The Ebola virus disease is a severe fatal illness that affects both humans and animals. The virus was first identified in 1976 during two simultaneous outbreaks in Sudan and the Democratic Republic of Congo, formerly known as Zaire. The virus is named after the Ebola River, where the first outbreak occurred in Sudan. The first documented case of Ebola occurred in a village near the Ebola River in Sudan in June 1976. The initial symptoms of the disease were a high fever, headache, muscle pain, and weakness. Later, patients would experience vomiting, diarrhea, and internal and external bleeding. By the time the outbreak was over, 284 people had become infected, and 151 had passed away, resulting in a mortality rate of 53%. Around the same time, another outbreak of a similar disease occurred in the DRC, in a village near the Ebola River. This outbreak was larger, with 318 cases and a mortality rate of 88%. The two outbreaks were initially thought to be separate, but laboratory analysis later confirmed that the same virus was responsible for both. The virus was first named after the Ebola River, but it was later changed to Zaire Ebola virus, reflecting the location of the DRC outbreak. The virus is one of 5 known Ebola virus species, the other 4 being Bundibugyo virus, Sudan virus, Thai forest virus, and Reston virus. The Reston virus is the only one of the 5 that does not cause illness in humans. However, it can infect other primates. How Ebola virus functions. The Ebola virus is a highly infectious and often fatal disease that is caused by the Ebola virus. The virus is known to be transmitted to humans through contact with the bodily fluids of an infected animal or human. Once the virus enters the body, it begins to target specific cells, including those of the immune system, liver, and other organs. The Ebola virus targets cells by using a protein on its surface, which helps the virus to attach to specific cells and then enter them. Once inside the cell, the virus begins to hijack the cell's machinery to replicate itself. The virus replicates rapidly, leading to the destruction of the cell and the release of new virus particles. As the virus replicates, it also targets immune cells, including macrophages and dendritic cells.
She's very sick, Lorene says. This is the epicenter of the outbreak. There are damp patches on the mattress. They could be vomit or blood, urine or diarrhea, but this is by no means the worst case she's seen.
These cells are important in fighting infections, and their destruction by the Ebola virus allows the virus to evade the body's immune system. The Ebola virus also causes damage to the vascular system, leading to bleeding and ultimately organ failure. The virus damages blood vessels, leading to clotting and the breakdown of the vascular walls. As a result, blood leaks out of the vessels, leading to internal and external bleeding. Symptoms of Ebola typically appear within 2 to 21 days after infection and include fever, fatigue, muscle pain, headache, and sore throat. As the disease progresses, symptoms such as vomiting, diarrhea, and bleeding may occur. The severity of the disease can vary widely, with some individuals experiencing only mild symptoms, while others may develop severe hemorrhagic fever and organ failure.
Liberia's tiny band of healthcare workers are throwing everything they have at Ebola. The woman in there, we understand, is unconscious, and it's when people are in that state that they're most contagious. In a city of 1 million, almost 50 new cases are reported every day.
History of Ebola. After the initial outbreaks of Ebola in 1976, there were sporadic cases of Ebola in the following years, but no major outbreaks until 1995, when an outbreak occurred in Kikwit, DRC. This outbreak resulted in 315 cases and a mortality rate of 81%. Another outbreak occurred in 2000 in Uganda. which resulted in 425 cases and a mortality rate of 53%. The largest outbreak of Ebola occurred in West Africa in 2014, with Guinea, Sierra Leone, and Liberia being the hardest hit. This outbreak began in December 2013 when a 2-year-old boy in Guinea perished from Ebola. The virus then spread to other parts of the country and eventually to neighboring countries. By the time the outbreak was over in 2016, there were 28,616 cases and 11,310 casualties, resulting in a mortality rate of 39%. Since the 2014 outbreak, there have been several smaller outbreaks in Africa, including in the DRC, Guinea, Sierra Leone, and Uganda. In the most recent outbreaks, one was declared over in Guinea in June 2021, with 16 cases and about 12 casualties reported. On 20 September 2022, Uganda declared an Ebola disease outbreak caused by the Sudan Ebola virus species, after the confirmation of a case in Mubende district in the central part of the country. It was the country's first Sudan Ebola virus outbreak in a decade and its fifth of this kind of Ebola. In conclusion, the history of Ebola is relatively short, with the first cases being identified in 1976. The disease has caused several major outbreaks in Africa, with the largest occurring in West Africa in 2014. While there is no cure for Ebola, vaccines have been developed that have been effective in preventing the disease in some cases. Myths about Ebola. Over the years, as many people have gotten to know more and more about the Ebola virus, there have been an equal amount of misconceptions spreading as well. One common one is that Ebola can be transmitted through the air. This is not true. Ebola is only spread through direct contact with the bodily fluids of infected individuals, including blood, vomit, feces, urine, semen, and sweat. It is not transmitted through the air or water or food. Another is that Ebola can be treated with antibiotics. In reality, antibiotics are only effective against bacterial infections, not viruses like Ebola. Currently, there is no specific treatment or cure for Ebola. Treatment is mainly supportive, focusing on maintaining the patient's vital signs and preventing complications. Some people think Ebola can be prevented by wearing masks. However, wearing a mask can prevent the transmission of some respiratory illnesses, but it is not effective against Ebola. Ebola is only spread through direct contact with bodily fluids. A surprising one is that people believe that eating bushmeat can cause Ebola. While it is true that the Ebola virus is found in animals, including fruit bats, monkeys, and apes, not all animals carry the virus. Additionally, proper cooking of meat can destroy the virus. The risk of contracting Ebola from eating bushmeat is low, but it is still recommended to avoid the consumption of wild animals. Another myth is that Ebola is a man-made virus. There is no evidence to support the claim that Ebola was created by humans as a biological weapon or for any other purpose. The virus is believed to have originated from animals, such as fruit bats, and was first transmitted to humans through contact with infected animals. Lastly, many people seem to think that Ebola is always fatal. Granted, Ebola is a very serious disease with a high mortality rate, yet not everyone who contracts the virus will perish. With proper medical care and treatment, some individuals are able to recover.
It is a disease that is beyond boundaries. It is a disease that is irrespective of who you are.
Doctors here say they are fighting a war against a deadly and unpredictable enemy.
Mortality rate. There are several different strains of the Ebola virus, and the mortality rate can vary due to many factors. One of the most lethal strains of Ebola is the Zaire Ebola virus, which was responsible for the 2014-16 Ebola outbreak in West Africa that claimed over 11,000 lives. The mortality rate of Zaire Ebola virus is estimated to be around 50 to 90%, with some outbreaks having a mortality rate as high as 90%. Another strain of Ebola is the Sudan Ebola virus, which is found in parts of East and Central Africa. The mortality rate of Sudan Ebola virus is estimated to be around 40 to 60%, with some outbreaks having a mortality rate as high as 75%. The Bundibugyo Ebola virus is another strain of Ebola that was discovered in 2007 in Uganda. The mortality rate of Bundibugyo Ebola virus is estimated to be around 25 to 36%, with some outbreaks having a mortality rate as high as 50%. The Reston Ebola virus is the only strain of Ebola that does not cause illness in humans. It was discovered in the Philippines in 1989 and is known to infect monkeys and pigs. While the resistant Ebola virus does not pose a direct threat to human health, it is still considered a potential public health threat due to its ability to infect other primates. The Thai forest Ebola virus was discovered in 1994 in Côte d'Ivoire and has only caused one known outbreak in which all 3 infected individuals survived. The mortality rate of Thai forest Ebola virus is unknown, but it is believed to be lower than other strains of Ebola, but nonetheless is quite fatal.
Our brothers and sisters, they are all dying day and night, every day.
And he was like, yeah, we have to get out right now. It's just not safe.
No measures of Ebola.
Ebola impact on Africa. The Ebola virus outbreak in West Africa from 2014 to 2016 had a devastating impact on the region. The outbreak was the largest and fatal recorded in history, with over 28,000 cases and over 11,000 casualties reported in Guinea, Liberia, and Sierra Leone. The impact of the Ebola virus on the affected countries was significant, with social, economic, and political implications. The Ebola outbreak had a huge impact on the social fabric of the affected countries. The virus claimed the lives of many individuals, leaving many children orphaned and families broken. The fear of infection led to the stigmatization of the infected individuals, which made it difficult for them to seek medical help. Social gatherings, including weddings and funerals, were also affected as they were potential sources of transmission. The outbreak had huge economic implications for the affected countries. The response to the outbreak, which included quarantine measures and movement restrictions, led to a slowdown in economic activities. The tourism industry, which was a major contributor to the economy, was significantly affected as many tourists avoided visiting the affected countries. The agriculture and mining industries, which were major employers, were also affected as many workers stayed at home to avoid infection. The Ebola outbreak also had political implications. The affected countries were criticized for their slow response to containing the outbreak. The response was initially slow due to the lack of resources and infrastructure to contain the virus. The international community was also criticized for its slow response in providing assistance to the affected countries.
This is a medical public health emergency.
Instead of me spending days for nothing, I decided joining the process to fight against Ebola.
That's all for this video, folks. We'll see you next time.